Students from the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind join with community members to bring a Disney favorite to life.
It's neat because you know that they're going to walk away from this experience having just a little bit more understanding of another culture.
We'll also meet a grad made good.
They guided me to life, to the real world, to facing the real world, to facing the world that can see.
The Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind. This is Arizona Week. Hello and welcome to Arizona Week. I'm Christopher Conover in for Lorraine Rivera. In October of 1912, classes began at the Arizona Schools for the Deaf and Blind. Those first classes were held on the campus of the University of Arizona. Over time, the school grew to standalone facilities in Tucson and Phoenix, as well as 5 regional cooperatives across Arizona. This week marks the end of a 4-month program where students from the school joined with members of the Tucson community and Arts Express to present a live performance of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. My colleague here at Arizona Public Media, Sandra Westall, went behind the scenes as the group prepared to take the stage.
This particular production I've probably been working on since about winter break. In total, there are about 100 costumes. I don't make all of them by hand. I mean, some of them, we get some stuff from thrift stores and sometimes we'll have to alter some of that. And then I have a really great committee who's been helping me make some of that too. Most people know this production very well, so they expect them to be, most of the characters to be costumed in a way similar to what they've seen before.
Our first thought was to pick a show that the students this year would be familiar with, and we thought this one just had a really nice message.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. So my name is Kate Scally-Howell, and I am the music director for our current production of Beauty and the Beast, and I also teach music here at the School for the Deaf and Blind. There's really nothing exactly like this that try to bring kids from the different communities together and have them work together and communicate together from the deaf community and the blind community, and then kids just from the general community. What you see is in the beginning, everybody is a little uncomfortable because no one really knows, should I go over and talk to that person? Can I talk to that person? Am I gonna offend somebody if I say something wrong? I just handle the music. That's my job. I'm supposed to teach the music to everybody and make sure they sound good. And then Luke is the director, so he really puts all the little pieces together.
We have roughly about 20 pages.
It's always a challenge when you bring people from different backgrounds or different cultures into one space and try to have them work together. In this case, we've got people who speak different languages, which is yet another challenge. My name is Luke Howell, and I'm the director of Beauty and the Beast, and I work at the AZPM as well. We want to make the show fully accessible, and we feel like part of that
and
is
entertaining.
And entertaining. If it's entertaining to people who speak English and entertaining to people who speak American Sign Language, then it's fully accessible.
I'm Fatuma Ali, and I'm a senior here in the high school at the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind. And my role is Mrs. Potts. Well, I work with the partner, and it's been hard because they're able to hear, and then if I'm signing too fast and they're not where I'm at, or if I'm not signing as fast as they're speaking, and then trying to coordinate the timing on that, so that's been kind of difficult. Yeah, I love to dance. I love music, I like the rhythm, the beat, any of that.
When you start, it's chaotic, and then it starts coming together as we go through the rehearsals. Hello, my name is Eva Maria Tenori. I'm 12 years old, and I play Babette in Beauty and the Beast. Last year was my first time being in a production. I learned how to move around the stage and learn where things are, and now I'm learning more how to put character into my character Babette.
So you lied to me?
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you did.
Well, maybe a little.
Lumiere, I like you this way better too.
It's really fun because you get to learn about other people from the community.
So if you guys trim right along the steps and try to match your shoulders with the person to the left and the person to the right.
I came here with the expectation that I was going to be working with blind and deaf actors, and that it was going to be either completely similar or very similar to Beauty and the Beast. I was off. This is much more lively. This is so much more, filled with acting and character and charm. My name is Jonathan Leslie. I go to San Miguel High School, and I'm 15 years old, and currently I'm playing speaking guest on. Up until now, I haven't had any acting experience at all. But this acting experience has really allowed me to open up.
Pumpkin, extend with me.
I'm really excited for this to come together. And I'm also excited for next year because I love the experience, and in all honesty, I want to come back here again. For the friendships I've made.
I think during Tech Week everyone was a little panicked. But I think that happens a lot during Tech Weeks in general. And as always, it's the magic of theater. It always comes together at the last minute.
Last time we took one off because I couldn't take it off. It was like this.
Yeah. So do you want it a little bit tighter so it'll stay up then?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait.
And then I don't have to take it off.
We've split all of our characters in half, and so we have an ASL version and we have an English version, and we've costumed them similarly so that the audience will understand that they're supposed to be the same person. When we brought the group together, no one really understood what the abilities of the other people in the room were, and pretty quickly they realized that everybody was pretty much the same.
So, Ben, what'll it be? Is it a yes? Or is it a, oh, yes?
I just don't deserve you.
Who does?
The play runs through this weekend on the school's Tucson campus. Juan Pablo Guzman graduated from the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind in 1997. Since then, he's become one of only a small number of elected officials with a disability in the United States. Sandra Westall again brings us this profile of one of the school's grads made good.
Good afternoon. So let me tell you something. Ms. Olais sort of introduced me. My name is Juan Pablo Guzman, okay? And I do things a little bit different than you, and I want to explain today what we do. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about myself. My eyes don't work well, okay? So because of that, I am what?
Blind.
Let's say it again, I am?
Blind.
You know something, guys? I'm very proud of being blind. I love speaking to children because they are very curious individuals. Every time it's different. Every time they come up with a different question.
When you're eating, like some cake, and then you eat by put it in this.
Okay, so how do I eat, buddy? Right? You want to know how I eat? Okay, that's a very good question, guys. Sometimes we need someone to tell us where the food is. So if I get a plate with cake, I truly enjoy being able to teach them something. You want to know who's my boss? All of you are my bosses. All of you are my bosses because the job that I do, where I work at, it's called the clerk of the court.
I have had the honor of serving the people of Santa Cruz County as clerk of the court for the past 7 years. I can do my job fully independent because of technology. With technology, I can help others. I help my staff. Probably one of the only things I need help with is researching or going to get a file. What do we have? Civils here? Just get me 2010. What you see behind me is part of our files that, as clerk of the court, I'm responsible to keep, maintain, and safeguard. When was that filed?
And that was filed May 14th, 2010.
Those are they're not in Braille. It would be a huge cost to the county to put all of them in Braille.
Entonces es muy sencillo, no lleva mucho. ¿Dónde te vas a casar? Aquí. En Nogales, Arizona.
Before having the opportunity of serving as clerk of the court, I was the public information officer for the city of Nogales. I think that my blindness has opened doors for me. My eye condition is called Leber's congenital amaurosis. It's a condition that was diagnosed when I was a little baby. It's a genetic eye disease. My sister is also blind with the same eye condition. I was very fortunate to have the best parent you can imagine. They gave us everything to make us feel that even though we were blind, we could do anything we wanted to do in life. My father is the person that I look up to. He has the honor of serving as mayor of Nogales, Mexico. What inspires me to be positive, grow personally and grow professionally, is my family. Christy is everything. We've been married for 13 years. We never considered not having children. We always wanted children. When she became pregnant of Juan Pablo, we did have conversations about the possibility of Juan Pablo being blind. She told me, so what if he's blind? Well, she said, well, you're just gonna teach him what you know. You're just gonna teach him how to be blind, and that's it. And since then, we haven't touched the subject. And now we have 3 perfectly sighted 2 boys and 1 little girl. Juan Pablo, the oldest. Ramon is my 7-year-old. And then we have Mia. She is probably the one that is the most mature, even though she's the smallest one. The pillar of this house and who keeps us going is my wife. There's nothing that will pay her what she does for us, other than, I think, our love to her. They expect me to be okay, especially my children and my wife. I have taken advantage of the opportunities that I have been faced with in life. How I have grown professionally is not just because of me. This is about my family and about the team that I have the honor to lead at the clerk of the court's office. Whatever you want to do in life, you can do it. Even if you are blind, deaf, or if you don't have any disabilities, there will be a way to do it.
The Arizona Schools for the Deaf and Blind bring children together from across the state. Lorraine Rivera sat down with Ray Mangare to reminisce about his time at the school 7 decades ago.
My parents enrolled me there at the age of 7, and I went through the 12th grade, and I graduated in 1956.
Do you remember having that conversation with your mom and dad about your coming to the school?
Yeah, oh yeah. We talked about it, and they said, this is a pretty good school, we've heard of it, and you know, I think you'll do well there.
What did ASDB do for you as you grew up?
Well, I was educated from 1st to 12 years, and then I was one of the first few people to ever received orientation and mobility. That's the use of the white cane. There were 4 of us or 6 of us we happened to be there at a time when one of the teachers went to Hunter College. And at that time, it was a 3-month course. So that's where I learned mobility at age 15 or 16, I guess. So I was catching buses and stuff, and my parents wouldn't see me until supper time sometimes. Sometimes not even then. But, you know, that was really an experience. And then I was on the wrestling team. And I think that helped me a lot with my mobility, too, because we used to wrestle against sighted folks. So that really gave me a lot of confidence in my potential and my abilities.
Then you graduated from ASDB. You
Right.
were 17, 18 years
I
old?
was about 18.
And what did you do after that?
Then I attended the university and received a bachelor's degree in Spanish and a minor in history. And I was thinking of maybe being an interpreter, and I couldn't find a job. And this was in probably 61 or 62. And so about 3 years I went around looking for a job, writing applications. And then I heard about the Peace Corps, and I said, what the heck, I'll apply. I did, and I was accepted. And that was probably the most exciting experience I ever had. Originally there were 66 of us, and there were only 33 that made it to the host country.
You spent 34 years working with the state. Describe your work.
Well, at first I was hired as what is called a rehabilitation teacher, and I taught independent living skills to blind people, visually impaired folks. And then I kind of went up the ladder a little bit, and I was kind of representing the Blind Services program in Southern Arizona, and I was the local office coordinator for a while, so this before I retired. So I had about 3 jobs by the time because I was doing some teaching, but I had a few interns that were sent to me by Dr. Jane Aaron from the university. They have a special education program for the visually impaired, and they obtained a grant to hire people from the graduate programs to teach independent living skills to blind and visually impaired persons. So in order to do that, you had to have a master's degree to be a certified teacher of the blind, of the adult blind, basically.
So you did that work for 34 years?
Right, 34 years. Then I worked under contract with the state, doing evaluations and stuff for about 15, 20 hours a week. And so then I taught at the university, working with graduate students with that grant that I was talking about, to train teachers to teach independent living skills to blind, visually impaired persons. So I taught there for a couple of years, and then I worked at the Southern Arizona Association for the Visually Impaired, SAVI, for about a year. They were developing a comprehensive program for visually impaired persons. They received a certain amount of money from the state, they still do, for comprehensive training for people interested in going to work. They also have an independent living program for those over the age of 55. And so they have a variety of services. It's a private, not-for-profit agency that receives some funding from the state of Arizona. Part of my job before I retired was to monitor their contracts for them and for the teachers of Southern Arizona. So I covered quite a bit of territory, all the 5 counties of Southern Arizona: Pima, Santa Cruz, Cochise, Graham, and Greeley.
What overall impact do you think ASDB has had on the state of Arizona?
Well, I think it gives visually impaired and deaf persons an opportunity to be educated, to gain confidence in their abilities. And you know, I think that is important. It's a good educational system for individuals. I think sometimes people who come out of the program, if they haven't, at the time we thought they didn't have as much daily living skills as they could have had, but I think that's improved a lot. And with SAVI in the picture, that helps a lot too. So there's cooperation between the two agencies, the adult program for the blind, visually impaired, and also the school itself. So the school does have independent living programs as well. So it serves not only an education, but a confidence builder for people wanting to become independent.
What don't people know about the deaf and blind in this community?
I think a lot of things people don't know, especially about the blind, is that people can be independent, that they can be productive citizens. And I think it's an ongoing process. We've worked on that a long time. And I think it's easier for the deaf, but still, there's some issues there where people are really hesitant about hiring people who have disabilities, simply because they're not sure of the liability, etc. That's one of the stereotypes are that, are they independent? Can they do the job? And of course we feel they can, since we have, you know a couple of these people, and there's some blind attorneys, blind counselors, people who work as some types of mechanics. So there's blind people, and so are deaf, are hired for a lot of different positions, both professional and non-professional.
What do you hope the future holds for programs like ASDB as they continue to grow and serve a population?
Well, I hope that they continue to be funded and that we continue to train people in that field, the field of blindness and hearing impairment, because I think they're needed, and I think they serve a really excellent purpose in that the main objective of a lot of these programs is to eventually put people to work. And for those that can, and for whatever reason, it teaches them to be independent. And for the elderly blind, it helps them to prevent from going to sheltered care facilities or nursing homes. Once they learn some of those skills at home, they're able to live independently. It varies in degree, but depends on the physical problems. But that's the objective, to enhance people's level of independence and help them become self-reliant.
Changing gears now, Carl Tannenbaum is an economist with Northern Trust Bank. But before that, he worked for the Federal Reserve Board. Zach Ziegler recently sat down with Tannenbaum for an assessment of the economy.
It's been doing very well. Believe it or not, the American economy has been expanding for more than 6 years, but if you ask the average person whether it felt like it, they'd probably answer no. We had a very slow start to this recovery because we had some repair to do after the financial crisis. We had households with too much debt, banks with too much debt, governments with too much debt, and they've had to tighten their belts a little bit. But in the last couple of years, the pace of economic growth has clearly stepped up. That's resulted in a measured increase in job creation, and the incomes that come along with those jobs are feeding into spending and keeping the momentum really going. So we've arrived at a pretty good place.
You mentioned, job growth is starting to happen again. We're seeing the stock market hitting all-time highs. Do these tend to be leading indicators of an economic recovery, and do we tend to see other things start to follow once those areas go up?
Absolutely. Things like job creation and strong markets are what we call tailwinds for economic activity. Obviously, when people get back to work, they have incomes that they can use to spend, which create revenues and profits for firms who may in turn think that it's a good time to expand or hire more people. And when your portfolio is doing well and you look at it, you think maybe you can afford to spend a little bit more money. And again, once the spending goes up, everything else follows suit. So both of those things are very helpful at the moment.
While job growth is a big thing, another thing that people always look forward to in an economic recovery is wage growth. That's been a little slower coming. When do you think we might start to see a little more growth in that area?
Usually when you get the unemployment rate down to where it is today, about 5.5%, you'll see wages growing at a pace of about 3% per year. At the moment, we're growing wages at only about 2% per year, and that's one of the persistent, I won't say disappointments, but opportunities for improvement that we see in the labor markets. And maybe it's a sign that people have gotten back to work, but maybe not at the ideal job with the ideal wage. Perhaps they've gotten their feet back on the employment ladder, hoping to ascend a little bit over time as conditions improve. We're starting to see some of that ascent in the rate at which people are quitting one job for a better one, and so hopefully better wage growth is on the horizon.
A topic that you obviously know a fair amount about, given your background with the Federal Reserve Bank, is interest rates. What do you see coming in the future for interest rates?
That's a question that everybody from my clients to my mother are asking. They want to know when, they want to know how much. And all I can tell you is that we're much closer to the beginning of an increase in interest rates than we've been at any time since 2008. Of course, rates were reduced to basically zero in the hope of promoting the economic growth that we just talked about. And now that we're getting it, the Federal Reserve is beginning to feel more comfortable that they can begin normalizing interest rates and not damage economic activity. They're looking at two things. One is full employment, and if we're not already there, we're certainly well along the way. But they also have a target to get inflation to about 2%. And we're a long way from that at the moment, even if you adjust for what has been a big drop in energy prices. I think they'll probably wait a little while before they start increasing until there are signs that inflation is back to a more normal level. But certainly by the end of the year, we should have begun the process of getting interest rates back to normal levels.
You hear a lot of talk about when will interest rates go up, but for those who maybe aren't as experienced, how will that affect the economy once it eventually happens?
When interest rates go up, it has two effects. Obviously, for borrowers, it means that you're going to be paying a little bit more to borrow money. But I think at these low levels, even if the Federal Reserve, for instance, were to raise interest rates by 1%, those are borrowing rates that for most of the last generation would be very, very accommodative. But what it also does is for savers, it begins to increase the rates that they're getting on their accounts, and that adds to their interest income and hopefully to their spending. So there are two offsets, and certainly if the economy has enough momentum, this shouldn't be something that derails us. Given kind of the current state of things, who would it be a help for? Who would it be a hindrance for? Well, certainly the hindrance is those who are still in a little bit of debt. Households came out of the crisis with perhaps a little bit too much leverage, and while many have done a great job of getting that under better control, there are some that are still carrying a little bit too much home equity debt or student debt. And every little bit in the interest rate will tend to make things just slightly more difficult for them. For others, though, again, on the investment side, when you're earning almost nothing on a certificate of deposit, that's not going to help sustain you, let's say, in your retirement. And so as those interest rates begin to increase, that should make life a little bit more comfortable for people who are living on those fixed incomes. For those maybe looking to make a change to their investments or get into investments, what is the key piece of advice that you would give them right now? The piece of advice I'd give to an investor is one that you can give in almost any environment, which is know what your goals are and stay focused on them for the long term.
And that's all for this edition of Arizona Week. I'm Christopher Conover. Thanks for tuning in.